Hi everyone, it's Mark here from Torus Tree, and I'm super excited because this is the first podcast that we've done. Now, it might be the last, or it might be one of many. We don't know, on a journey of discovery. But this one's really about journeys of transformation. It's, we want to cover about the first breath, the lasting change, all the things that we've been working on, Sadie and myself, over the last, 30 years that we've been doing stuff. And because as you running businesses, bringing kids up, and just living in today's society is quite a stressful thing to do. And often we're not taught, especially at schools, we're not taught the tools how to deal with stress and pressures and all those those thoughts that go on in your head that may be holding you back. So we wanted to start a place where we can show normal people, you, I, how we can progress and how there is opportunities for us not to really change the internal story that we have going on, which ultimately will change your external story. But today I'm super, super excited because it's like a family affair today. I've got Sadie, my partner in crime. Hello, Sadie.
Hello.
And I've got my brother-in-law, which happens to be Sadie's brother, Bryden. Hello, Bryden.
Hello there.
So, obviously, we're just getting used to doing podcasts and talking to screen and stuff, so we're just going to dive into it. I thought it was good to have Bryden on here as our first episode because Bryden has literally just started a journey on breathwork, and I'd love just to dive straight in because this is all about transformation, Bryden. And you've been when did you first do your first breathwork with us?
I've completely lost count of time. It feels like 3 weeks ago, but I think it's maybe longer. It was before you moved. So the first experience of breathwork was in the living room of the old house.
So we were just testing it with a few friends and family, and we got some lessons up there, and we were just learning it ourselves. And the power of the 9D, this is specifically 9D breathwork, has been phenomenal. And when you do your first journey, a lot of people just think, it's breathwork. I know I was the same. What's breathwork? To this, that. I breathe my whole life. I'm pretty good at it. But we're not actually taught how to breathe deeply. And
I didn't say that. I said breathwork. That's a load of nonsense. That's not for me. That's not for me breathing until I experienced it. Yes. So it was quite a bit of a surprise, really, because I thought, okay, go on. All right then. You can practice on me. But the experience
so you had
was completely
expectations.
different.
You've seen the guy who gets into the ice. Forget his name. What's his name, Sadie?
Wim Hof.
Wim Hof, thank you very much. I'm also dyslexic and can never remember anything. So Wim Hof, a lot of people have seen his, Bryden. I'm assuming you probably thought it was similar sort of lines to that.
No, I didn't.
No? Okay.
I saw it was all about, getting rid of trauma and stress. And I thought, well, that's not for me. I haven't got any problems. That's literally what I said, when my mum said, oh, do you want to come to the breathwork? No, there's nothing wrong with me.
And that was
that was my kind of closed mind up it,
After that first session, what happened is you did your session, you went home.
And I had a moment and I was like, wow, that's what happened there. Initially it was like embarrassment. Oh, what happened to me? I thought, did I lose control? What was the feeling? What was going on? And I thought, I need to find out more about this and understand what actually happened. Because there was no context. I know you were doing the breath work. I didn't really know what it was about, really. I didn't kind of look into it, or I didn't go searching on Google to find out. So I was kind of closed-minded, but I wasn't influenced by, looking on the internet and stuff, So that was, afterwards I thought, maybe I need to kind of process this. So it was a couple of weeks, I think, afterwards of processing that and wondering what happened and what was I feeling and what were the emotions. So that was the initial.
You think that after your first one, you were like, oh yeah, but it wasn't really your first one that motivated you to do more though, was it? Because I kind of like you had to have, you weren't quite ready for the breath work.
No.
I think we need to add in that you do have a little growler on your lap, a little snorer.
That's not he's snoring away.
He keeps snorting, so it's not you, Bryden, making funny noises. It's Billy.
Yeah, it's just in camera there.
So your first experience though, it was a bit like just out of nowhere. You did it, and then how did you feel afterwards? Was it something that you that really called to you, or was it later on?
Yeah, so the first proper session, that was at the new house. Wasn't that in the tent, I think it was? Actually did a short one with Mark as well, but I just felt like there was a lot to give. Felt very emotional, and yeah, Billy said really loud. And I felt I needed more of this feeling, there's just stress going away. What I noticed was I think it was my wife Louise that noticed afterwards. She thought, oh, you look younger, you look calmer, you're nicer to be around, less stressed, so when you start seeing the results like that within, like immediate, you think, well, there must be more to it. There must be more to learn. There must be more to fix as such, the emotions. And then I wanted to do more.
And it was all done with the breath. This is what always blows people away when they first do it. It's like suddenly they're breathing, and it's real deep breaths into the belly, into the chest. And we're not even taught how to do that properly. And, unless you do something like singing or acting where they teach you a bit more breathing regulation and stuff, often most of us breathe in the top of our chest. And if you ever get, excited or stressed, it tends to be in the chest rather than deep. So your body responds to that. And Sadie's obviously the total expert on this part of the breath work. But what happens, Sadie, when you take those deep breaths? What's going actually physiologically in the body?
Well, I mean, firstly, we breathe all the time. Interestingly, we're not conscious of our breath. Actually, once you start to become conscious of your breath, and then you start to notice how you breathe in different situations. So you're exactly right. If we are anxious, or some people, oh, I got a really tight chest, or I couldn't breathe, or even like, when you have hilarious laughter. You know what I mean? Suddenly your breathing stops as you're into, like, giggles and stuff like that. What happens is you can't breathe, and you're like, "Ah!" You're trying to take your breath in. And so it's actually, our breath is actually the key that we didn't realize, that unlocks the door to allow us to be able to take control of our nervous system. That's effectively what the breath work is doing. And as you start to take these conscious breaths, because that's one of our autonomic nervous systems, is we breathe without thinking about it, but it's one of the only things that we can take control of. Most of us don't take control of our heart rate, although we can via our breath. So the breath is something that we can take conscious breath. And as soon as we start to do that, and we start to take the deep breath into the belly, what that does, especially like different breath techniques, like if you breathe in for shorter but breathe out longer, what that does is that resets your nervous system. It's telling your body that you're safe, because when you are not safe, when you're running away from that tiger, or when you are hiding away from the danger, you're quieting the breath, or you know what I mean? And so that's why you realize that actually it's a little hack that you start to take conscious breaths. You can use that to give you different altered states of consciousness, and also makes you be able to be more in control of how you react in situations. And as soon as you start to bring any sort of breath work, as soon as you start to bring attention to that, and you start to notice it, that's all you need. And suddenly you start to realize, actually, I can control how I'm responding in this situation. Or I can just remember, just take a breath, calm down, and suddenly you're in a lot more control. So,
And Bryden, because you obviously just started this journey, have you to date used it in real life, all the breath work that you've been learning? Has there been situations where you gone, remember to breathe, and you change how your body was responding?
Yesterday, we were introduced to a new breathwork session with 9D breathwork, which is there was 8 breath holds in that, and it's all about it's a deregulation one, so it's all about calming. So yes, if I ever feel even just a slightly bit of anxiousness coming in, so if you're before a call, going to meet somebody, or just you feel you could just not quite relaxed. So it was a nasal breath, so it was just a long kind of, it's nice and slow. So, well, I did through the mouth there, but it was actually in through the nose, out through the nose, and it was a long breath. And it just calms you down. It just settles you, grounds you. So, yeah, if I'm driving in the car, I can just do that breath. Somebody annoys you while you're driving, and or cuts you up, you do that breath, and that just kind of takes away that anger, takes away that kind of flight or fight mode that you can just fall straight into. So yeah,
and it's really interesting when you hold the breath, because, and I said, I'll call you in on this one as well, because holding the breath's been really powerful for me, because often when I'm holding the breath, my body gets a little bit tensed. I have this technique where I just swallow. And that swallowing just says to my body, just relax. And suddenly I feel like, wow, I can hold my breath longer. But I also use that, as you say, when you're out and about and something, and you just swallow, remind your body that, hey, everything's all right. Everything's all right, and calm it down. So how does the breath holds affect the body, Sadie?
Gosh, so actually the breath hold is where all the magic happens, especially in the 9D journeys that we do. A lot of the breath holds, one, it's programming you at that point. As soon as you're going to start listening, as soon as you start to hear your breath hold your breath within the 9D journeys, that's often when the guided meditation and the subliminal, the programming is actually happening. So from that, it makes you more suggestible. It changes the brain state. But there's also a lot of physiological benefits from breath holds. It's actually called breath apnea training. And so being able to hold your breath expands your capacity to be able to breathe deeper. It works with the cardiovascular, your VO2. So there's lots of positivities on that side. It actually makes you be able to feel in control, makes you be able to calm your nervous system. Like you say, if you just, while you're holding your breath and then you take that swallow, it's actually you're signaling into your body that everything is safe and everything is okay. When you're doing the journeys in 9D, a lot of the journeys, we're dealing with some very deep topics. We might be dealing with things that have been like triggering you repeatedly over your life. And when you are going to work through this somatically through the body, our body is in protection mode, which is what these patterns are. So a lot of the time we will tense up, and so when you're in the breath hold, you'd be like, oh, I'm really tense. And then what you can do is you can physically take control of that, and you go, no, I'm safe. I can hold my breath. And you can hold your breath obviously longer because we've been doing, you've been getting off gas and the carbon dioxide, which is actually the signaling to breathe in. So the fact that you're hyper-oxygenating the system, you can hold your breath longer because you've off-gassed that carbon dioxide, and then you start to relax, and then you start to release the tension within the body, and it just gives you that feeling of control. Because usually when we are in any sort of triggered state, fight, flight, freeze, often we feel out of control. That's really where stress comes, is when you feel out of control of a situation. So the fact that you can take control of your breath is calming the nervous system. It resets that. So effectively, the breath hold is where the magic happens. But in order to get to the breath hold, you obviously have to do the breath, the active breath up to that point. But yeah, that answers your question.
Noticed that. Yeah, I've noticed that as well in the recent sessions that we've done with you. That, yeah, there's the initial breath hold is, yeah, I'm holding my breath just like normal. Then there's the tension. Then you kind of swallow into it. And then your body just sinks like a wave. It just completely relaxes. And then you think, oh, I'm still holding my breath. You just totally relax, and it's like this serenity just kind of washes over you. And then, I think I've been up to 4 minutes on some of the breath work that I've been doing. And you're like,
and would you have ever believed you could have done that? Would you have thought you could do 4-minute hold?
No, I thought it was still going. Sometimes when he says breathe out, I'm thinking, no, I'm not ready yet. I'm just going to keep holding it a bit longer. Yeah, I want to hold on a bit longer. Right now, I'll release.
On my terms.
Yeah.
And it's making you feel more powerful when you realize that then you can do that. The very act of doing that gives you that calmness to go, oh, okay, because our breath is fundamental to every single thing that we do in life. Without the breath, we're not here. You know what I mean? And so, and it's a subconscious thing to then be able to change that, and through changing the breath, then can change your internal state. Because, the way that everything is set up now in society is everything is effectively stimulating our nervous system and making us feel like, even though our head does not think we're stressed, our body is reacting to those stresses. We're getting a little bit tense, we're getting, we tighten up, we hold ourselves in funny positions. And so just the fact that you are then thinking, no, I just need to take a breath, that means that you open your chest, you put your shoulders back, you kind of relax and you open up. And that physical movement also matches your internal state. So it's the thing about the breath work that is the most surprising to people, but is also why it's so effective, is because it's a way of hacking the way that your behavior. And so something that was subconscious, like the breath is subconscious, the patterns that we have in life are subconscious. You know what I mean? Like we are going through a lot of routines and patterns that we're not even thinking about. Suddenly we realize that, hang on a sec, we can take control not only of the breath, but I can also then can take control of how I'm feeling. And then that releases the anxiety, and you just, you start to just get those happy hormones released, and, the neurochemicals. And so it's a cascade effect, and you are in complete control. And so that's the difference. As soon as you know that stress comes from feeling out of control. And so that means when we're not stressed, it means that we're feeling in control.
And I think to your point there, we're not even aware of a lot of these subconscious things going on. And it could be, well, I know a lot of us, whenever I speak to people about stuff, the one thing everyone talks about is who doesn't have mummy and daddy issues. And I think ultimately we pick things up from our parents, our grandparents, our families, and that's maybe imprinted on us without us even knowing about it. So someone might say something to you when you're 5, and your body still thinks, or that part of you still thinks you're 5 and needs to protect you or do whatever. So a lot of this work, it's not about, and we chat about this all the time in our sessions. We're not therapists. We're not here to go and talk through your traumas, and we all have traumas, big or small, and it's not a competition about who's got the biggest. Everybody's trauma is absolutely legitimate, and we all carry them. But if you don't work on it and release those things that no longer serve you, what can happen is you just pass them on to your kids. And they pass them on to their kids. And that's the things that I've totally resonated with me more so than anything else is I need to do this for myself, but also for my kids and their kids, and heal also past generations. Because if we don't, we just get stuck in this cycle. And another thing I've noticed is, and more so since I've been doing this work, is how my body reacts to things. So I'll feel something in my throat. Why is that? What's caused that part of my throat? And it could be someone said something. It could be money issues. It could be a job you got to get finished, stress. But suddenly what you start to notice is, ooh, that's appearing in my body. And that almost reinforces as the thing that you're thinking in your head. Well, if it's in my body, well, it must be true, the thing that I'm thinking, because it's reinforcing each other. And I think you talk about this all the time, Sadie, and hopefully, Bryden, you've picked this up as well, is it's not about going through those traumas again. It's about acknowledging them, feeling into them, but then releasing them. You can kid yourself. You can go, it doesn't bother me. But if it's sitting there, it's controlling you, whether you like it or not. So either you deal with it head on and you go, you know what? And you know what? I just got to get rid of this. And this is why I think people who really get the benefit from this work are the people who've just had enough. They've just gone, you know what, I've got to a point in my life, I'm so sick, I'm so bored of the same shit that keeps going on in my head that it's so imprinted, I actually believe it 100%. And then actually you find hope that there might be a way of releasing that. And that's the beautiful thing. Bryden, my question to you is, you've done a few journeys, you've been so convinced, and I mean, you're 32, 33 now? You're so convinced.
Yeah, that's right. I'm 93, I'm just looking great for my age.
Well, that was the big guess.
You're so convinced that actually you want to now get involved and do it in Edinburgh and be a facilitator of the breathwork in Edinburgh and control, alt, and breathe. So, what's changed in that 3 weeks from journey 1 to where you go, no, I'm going to do this myself and help more people?
That big change was I was doing the 30-day reset practice. So I think I was just a few days in. I'd just come back from being up at yours as well. And I just felt this urge to do. I hadn't done a long session by myself. So all long sessions were other people. And I just had this urge to let it go. And just like you said, it's just, I've had enough. I've had enough of the way, I'd experienced some of the benefits, and I've had enough of the things that have been holding me back. The things that are just, affect your confidence or speaking in public, or just, when you said about the throat one, I had that. It was, sometimes I feel like I don't have my voice, so I don't speak. You have this, I don't know, even if somebody is annoying you, you have this voice in your head that you're going to say this and you're going to say that, and you hold it in, you hold your voice and you don't say anything, and you feel like you should. So I felt I've had situations recently where I've spoken out, I've said how I feel, and I felt good about it. But I had that in my throat. It was almost like it came from here, it went up there, and it was like I couldn't. I was coughing. It was like I couldn't speak, and then so I let that go. But with the let it go one that I did by myself, that was huge. That was a huge release. And so, you almost wanted to wish somebody was there, to give you a hug afterwards. But I just felt it was just like so much better afterwards. And I thought, there's something in this. I want other people to benefit. I get a dopamine hit from helping people do things on TikTok, do things on their PC, fix their phone, do that. It makes me feel good helping other people. But with the breath work, it's more than just, getting a dopamine hit from helping somebody. Fixing their phone is a one-time thing. You can help somebody with the breath work, and that's just one breath work session that can change their life. Yeah, their whole life, just with one session.
Mm-hmm.
We have all things we're all challenges that we have when we're growing up. And there's all things, little situations, like you said before, when you're a child, just a little thing somebody could have just said, and that's kind of stuck with you. And it could be tiny. It couldn't even be classed as, it could not even be classed as a trauma. But
No, it's
it was
challenge.
just one thing, just one little thing somebody said to you, and it kind of just stays in there. So yeah, but one session can change somebody's life. But when you do more sessions and you practice it daily, you're talking about a complete reset. You're basically like defragging your computer. You're getting rid of all those gaps, and you're putting everything back whole again, and that just giving you that confidence. And like you said, if you've got kids, you're not passing that on to that stress on to your kids, and they're not passing it on to theirs. But yeah, it's a complete reset really when you do long-term work. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And a lot of things that you said there, Bryden, it's really interesting because most of our behavioral patterns, pretty much most of them are fixed by the time we're 8 years old. You know what I mean? So if you think about that, a lot of the patterns that are the foundation of our ego and how we deal with stuff are things that actually were from an immature mind. So, just the way that, a young brain reacts to the world, young people, especially, I mean, you've all seen like a 4-year-old, closes their eyes and thinks that everybody can't see them. You know what I mean? Because of their perception, because they close their eyes, they can't see anybody and they assume that everything is the same. And then as cognition and awareness starts to make them realize, actually, the people see the world differently from me, the brain starts to develop. But a lot of these things that we've learned about, like you say, you might have been up in your schoolroom and you might have said something and somebody, do you remember they used to always make you read out loud in the classroom? And then we were talking about this the other day when we were doing the sharing in our sharing circles. If you're the last one in the line, you get this anxiousness about, it's, the build-up of when it's your turn to speak. And that, for me, when that happens, that's totally connected to when I used to have to read out in school, and I would sit there and actually read through everything first, just so that when it came to me, I'd already read it so that I was prepared, and that anxiousness about public speaking and all these things may have come from as simple as reading out your lines in school. But then that becomes a pattern. Then we hold on to that. That becomes our foundation. And then what we're not taught is how to deal with these emotions. I mean, we are not taught when we hold back and don't speak our truth, that feeling that's connected to that gets trapped within the body because emotions is energy and motion. In other words, we should be releasing it. And so when we trap that in our body, that creates tension, creates anxiety. It can create long-term, it can create disease. And so these practices that we're learning is how to release those. And what's interesting is it's not like these are ancient practices. It's not like, there's breath work has been part of yoga, it's been part of a lot of different meditations and ancient practices. And yet in our modern society, we're just not taught how to deal with it. And so, yeah, I mean, how can you not want to feel more in control and lighter because you've just dropped off all these jaggy baggages that have been kind of connected to you that you pick up over your life?
Thing is, you don't realize it's fixed either. So you carry that baggage and you still hold it. You do the breath work, you're still holding that memory. So we had a community meeting with the 9D Breathwork, and Brian was saying, "Is anybody new?" And then there was 5 hands come up. And of course, I was the last one to be asked, and there was that same feeling. I'm going to say everybody else sounds so professional. They're all new. They just speak easily. And then it came to me, and I still had that same picture in my head of
the memory of it. Yeah.
Yeah, the memory. And then it came to me, and I just talked like I'm talking now. It wasn't an issue, but I was still carrying that baggage or the shadow of it until, because often we live in a bubble at home, and it's not till you actually go out in the world and go into scenarios where you may have got stressed before that you then realize, well, actually, I'm not stressed anymore about that.
Quite subtle, isn't it?
And then, and then once you realize that, oh, well, I'm actually fixed. You're now telling your brain, oh, well, that's not a problem anymore. That's fixed. I don't have that issue. And then the next time you speak in a public place, you're just yourself, like you would expect to be, just without any anxiety.
And it's funny because you're both talking about the same thing, and I'm just sitting here going, but no one's got like a gun to your head. It's not if you get a word wrong, you're going to get shot. But our brain, our body just goes into this, and you go, you're just talking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because we went to search for this cave near our house. I can't remember the name of the cave. Doesn't surprise me.
On Sunday,
just went up, and we were getting to the edge, and then suddenly my heart started racing because I don't like heights. Well, it's actually I don't like falling, but the heights is obviously connected to it. And my body started stiffening up. My feet started getting wonky, and I'm just like, if you just walked normally, you'd have no problems. But because my brain's now seeing this edge, which to me is like 10 million feet, and I'm going to fall down it, suddenly and then I go, so my body is reacting in a way is not helping me. It's
not
absolutely
conscious.
not helping it, not conscious, and it's just like, this is ridiculous. Just walk like you normally do 99.99% of the time. But it's those little things that you recognize, you go, wouldn't it be wonderful to change that? Wouldn't it be wonderful when someone says, can you do public speaking? You just go, yeah, I'll do it. Wouldn't it be wonderful that you started that business, but you didn't, if I fail, I fail. So what? Wouldn't it be wonderful to have that thing where you just go, I'm just going to do it. And my body's not going to react the way it always has. Wouldn't that just be a wonderful thing? And for me, I think that's what this whole work's on around. And obviously we combine the breath work with other things that we do in energy healing. And we've built a 12-week sort of like journeys for now with so we can take people through all the journeys, because some breathwork journeys are really hit people at different times. Some of them, like, it was interesting, I did one a couple of weeks ago which was on addictions, and I don't really have any addictions, and then realized how hard I've been working and working hard, going to the gym, all these things are addictions. It doesn't have to be drug, but you realize you get in this pattern. And then when you get a bit of downtime, like quiet, peaceful, you go, I should be busy. So you can never really enjoy the downtime or the happiness. Oh, I'm in a really happy place. This is not going to last. You're never present. And I think that's the key here. I think ultimately is, how can you be present so you're not stressing about the future? You don't have regret about the past. You're just being human being rather than human doing. And I think this breath work and this journey, along with the other things that we offer, I think is a really simple and powerful thing. And it's just breath. That's the beauty of it. It's just breath. Okay, there's a lot more going on. We say it's just breath, but with the journeys and the headphones and stuff, but it's very, very powerful.
It starts with the breath. Yeah, all the layers are added onto it, but it's the breath that's the core. The breath does the work, and all the extra layers make sure that work gets extra effect and stays and fixes. With the NLP and the hypnotherapy, the sounds, it's all kind of just adding all those extra layers just to give it much more strength. Which means you kind of get the results a lot quicker, because I know people who have done breath work, but then it's not until they've done 90 breath work that they've then realized that how much more it does in a short period of time compared to, months and months of breath work.
Yeah, it's interesting because breath work as a modality, as in a conscious breath work, has been around a long time. Mindfulness meditation, often it's like, as your mind wanders off, as soon as you notice it, just come back to the breath. Everything is about the breath, and then the pranayama and everything like that. So that is all what makes 9D different, and what has been the biggest surprise for Mark and I think, as well, because I've been doing breathwork for about 4 years, and we wanted to bring a breathwork practice into our new business, Torus Tree, because we know that it is beneficial. But the thing about 9D is, and what I love about biohacking and stuff like that, is how do you take something that is, an ancient knowledge, but then use technology to actually take it to the next level. And there's nothing wrong with technology. Technology is like anything. It's a tool. Wield it for positive or wield it for negative, And so what's wonderful about the 9D is, because not only are you doing the breath and using the guided meditation, but there are many layers within the soundscape, so which are helping to allow you to get into a deeper state of consciousness, there's tones playing through the music that's actually allowing your brain to get entrained and then get into, say, theta brainwave or alpha brainwave states. And then there's brain training going on because we've got the bi-audio beats going on at the same time. So even without the breath, if you were just sitting listening to the journeys, you would be getting a positive effect. But then we bring the breath, and then it just turbocharges it. It's like, we had a person last night, we did an intro session here in Torus Tree, and that was with somebody that had been doing breathwork for 8 years. So they're a practiced breathwork practitioner. They have done all the different techniques, and they do it on a regular basis. Now, they didn't say that to us before when they started, so that was interesting to see. So they came in and experienced, and we did the full reset journey, which is a little bit shorter. It's 47 minutes long, but and what's amazing is when afterwards he said, wow, he said, normally sometimes it can take me a little bit longer to switch my brain off. Often I can find myself wandering, and like if you've ever done meditation, some days you can do really well, but if you're really distracted and got a busy mind, it's hard sometimes to focus. And he said that within 5 minutes of the breathwork journey starting, he was deep. He was really deep, and he was starting his process, and he was starting to somatically release. And he found it totally moving, and he's 8 years in. So that's what is the beauty of the 9D. It's not just breath work. It's it's the whole soundscape experience. And both Mark and I we are blown away every single week. We have people on our journeys, we've got 30 people a week going through these sessions with us, and the amount of release and how effective it is just so humbling to see. And it's really effective. And like you say, Bryden, one journey, and you are suddenly, it's brought something to the forefront. Like, you didn't know when you said, oh, I didn't know that was anything wrong with me. Why do I need breathwork? And then what it does is it goes, hang on a sec, it shows what is hidden and highlights stuff. And you go, okay, that's interesting. And that's all it takes.
Conscious of the time, so just to wrap this up, I'd love, Bryden, because you're fresh in it, I'd love your view. If you met someone, never done it before, what would you say, or what would you like to say to them about doing the 9D breath work and doing the session? What would you say?
That's a very good question, and I don't have the and I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't think I have the words in my head yet of how.
So how would you feel about it? So if you said, okay, rather than the words, you go, what has it done for you in the short period of 3 weeks? Like, how have you felt it's done?
Well, I can feel the anxiety just building up already.
And what do you need to do?
But just take a breath.
Well, I can feel I'm getting hotter now. I'm on the spot now. Yeah.
But it's interesting. This is great because it's all about being authentic self. And ultimately,
I suppose if I was in a conversation, then I would probably know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think off my head, what I would, how I would start the conversation or what I would say.
And a lot of this is because it's so powerful. And I think if you've got some people who've started doing work and maybe doing some
I'm still trying to work it out myself. I'm still trying to work out myself what's happened,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you have people who are doing different things and different modalities and stuff. But I think with the breath work, like I've done yoga for quite a few years, not efficiently and not, but I've never, and people talk about a state you get into. What I find is I never get into the state that people describe. And I'm thinking, how many years do I have to do that? Where with the breath work, I find you can get into that state
immediately.
Journey 1 if you're committed, because it's just breath work. That's what I've
as long
felt.
as you do that, that's the main thing I learned from is that you got to put the work in. You've got to put the breath in, which is the work. You don't need to overdo it, but you've got to commit to the breath, because once you realize what happens, the next time you're working a little bit harder with the breath, because it's like, and it's quite strange going into one, because you're going to go through a journey. You've got something's going to happen. You're going to have some emotion. Nothing holds me back from doing it. I'm actually excited. I'm lying there, wow, I can't wait. I'm like, I can't wait to see what happens. It's like watching, wow, what's going to happen this time? Am I going to scream? Am I going to kind of... I'm just like, what's going to happen? And they're like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, people notice, obviously, most of the conversations about it is just people recognizing, oh, you're different. You're different this week. Yeah. I went live on TikTok and I didn't know what I was going to talk about, but people says, oh, you're going live again. And you look so much happier. You look happier. You look relaxed. And then I thought, because it was maybe 9 months ago since I was on TikTok live, I thought, you're looking at yourself like this. I thought, oh, I do look different. There's no filter on to start with, like I used to have. But, and people says, oh, I love your energy. I love your energy. And they want to come in the room and they're chatting. And I just felt empowered. I felt empowered and motivated, excited and relaxed. So other people kind of notice. Sometimes you don't notice yourself or recognize it yourself because you're just yourself. So you have up days and you have down days. But what's been odd is that I seem to have more up days, more days that you're kind of feeling great, feeling good, and less of those kind of real down days that you have where you just can't be bothered to do anything.
It's like, because you've named your business Control Alt Breathe, which is awesome, really, because that's effectively what you've done. You know what I mean? You've genuinely, the breath, fundamentally, the breath is resetting your nervous system, fundamentally, and sometimes we don't realize, because we get used to it, we don't realize that we're stuck in stress. We don't even realize it can be low chronic stress. And so as soon as you've just reset that, suddenly you're like, oh, great. So Control Alt Breathe is just effectively pretty much is. Yeah.
I just wish I'd found out about it sooner. No,
the classic.
A couple of years ago. In fact, last year, I was just come out of 18 months of just being totally depressed. Burned out. I suffered burnout. And that lasted like 18 months. And I didn't realize that's what it was. But I had no motivation to do no hobbies. I wanted to do my hobbies and everything. And then suddenly it's like, it's completely black and white, then and now.
And I think going back to the original point is it's that point where you go, I've had enough. And you might have heard about it 12 months ago, but just not been in the place ready for it.
No, and it was the Let It Go one where just before I just thought, I'm going to have to do this. I've got to do this. And I was so focused on, I've got to do this Let It Go one.
That's great.
And it was a big release. And it's because I just like you says, I've had enough of everything that's holding me back. We're not on this planet for a long time, so we've got to enjoy it. And now I want to go out and show other people. I want other people to have what I feel like, and to experience it. And that's what I want to do.
And on that point, if you want to do a session with us, we run sessions in Perthshire, Dunkeld, and in Blairgowrie and Perth and other towns, but mainly from our our retreat in the woods and the forest outside Dunkeld. And Bryden is going to be launching in, I guess, the next month or two in Edinburgh and East Lothian. So exciting times of that. So what I'll do is in the show notes.
Yeah, Mackenzie House.
In the show notes, I'll put all the details to the website where you can get details for where Bryden's located and what Sadie and I are doing in the Highlands of Scotland. But as always, I would love if you could smash that like button or whatever they say, follow us and do subscribe and all that fun stuff to get this channel. And we'll continue to do some more podcasts as long as my mum continues to listen to it. I'll continue to put it out for her. But if there's any topics you'd like us to cover or you want to reach out to us, please reach out. Thank you both. Thank you for coming on our very first podcast of Torus Tree. It's been great to have you on there. It's like I've just seen you yesterday. But thank you all. 5 minutes ago. Great.
Yeah.
Peace out,
All
everybody. Stay relaxed and remember, just breathe.
Just breathe.